So, if it wasn't obvious enough, I like video games, specifically Nintendo video games. But recently I'm trying to breach out, trying to expand my taste, widen the horizon, mostly just trying to play something other than Nintendo products as of late. I also like talking about video games, just like the next bushy-haired white boy on this platform. So I'm going to spend the next X amount of minutes yapping about some indie games that I've played over the past couple of years. Since 2020, I've been slowly accumulating data in a spreadsheet and logging every single game that I've played throughout the past 4 years. So today I'm going to pick 3 little wacky platformers at random and give my opinions on them. The way I'll be recommending these games, and hopefully completing my sales pitch, is by evaluating each game. I'll give the game's console availability, pricing, reception, my own personal rating, the time to complete the game, both through my own playtime and going off of HowLongToBeat.com's user submitted times, and a couple of titles I can recommend that the indie game may or may not have been inspired by, or even act as a continuation of. Now, I'm not a professional, nor am I of any high caliber to be creatively analyzing these tiny indie projects piece by piece. I just want to shed some light on these games and praise them, because some of them are genuinely incredible games. Plus, it gives reason to using my spreadsheet so it's not collecting dust in my Google Drive. First up, we got a little game called Here Comes Niko. This cute and cozy bite-sized 3D platformer released in 2021 and was a small project I had been following for roughly a year before release. If it wasn't obvious enough by the content of this video, my favorite game genre is platformers, but specifically 3D platformers. One day I was scrolling Twitter when I randomly came across this post on a developmental build of the game, and it caught my eye. A few months later, Frog Vibes, the development team, officially announced the game with a trailer alongside the announcement that Niko had been picked up by Gears for Breakfast, the dev team behind A Hat in Time, another stellar indie platformer. This acquisition came at a wonderful surprise to me and pretty well secured my purchase of the game. Here Comes Niko's charm is built through its unique arts and crafts paper art style, cute cast of non-playable characters, and just a general feeling of calm and comfortness that puts you at ease. You're usually never at a point of stress when you're playing this game. It's advertised as a game for tired people and a cozy platformer that you can play every once in a while to simply relax and take in the awe of the sunny locales, help out a new friend, or snag a collectible or two. Niko is a relatively simple 3D platformer. I'd use the word basic, but basic sounds like a negative more than a positive, and my point here is to say that Niko's simplicity is probably its biggest strong suit. My girlfriend primarily played the game while I either watched or lent her a hand when needed. For a quick point of comparison, at the time, which was 2021, the only 3D platformers my girlfriend had played were Super Mario Galaxy 1, 2, and Super Mario Odyssey, and when I showed her gameplay of Niko, she was hooked. So my point is that while Niko lays on the simpler side of 3D platformers, it's a great beginner title for people who are interested in getting into the genre. The game's controls are tight and responsive, but are also very forgiving, as Niko themselves are very bouncy when landing, jumping, or bumping off of surfaces, which can really come in handy for semi-difficult platforming sections. Niko's movement isn't as dynamic as other 3D platforming mascots, and only contains a handful of moves that mostly consist of jumping. There isn't a health bar present, there are no extra lives, and you can't even take fall damage. It's very relieving. Niko's goal is to become a so-called professional friend. You are accompanied by Pepper, a business frog that hires you with the intent of making you the best friend you can possibly be. Niko and Pepper travel via train to 6 tropical islands, each with their own set of collectibles and unique residents. Coins are your main objective, as they're used to pay for your train ride to the next island, and can be obtained by meeting the locals of each island and helping them with whatever task they need. This can be as simple as playing a game of volleyball, fishing, or finding butterflies. Each island, or world for more conventional terms, are small but open, and offer plenty of room to explore each nook and cranny. Each island also doesn't take that long to complete either. You can collect the minimum amount of coins and proceed to the next island without fully exploring if you really wanted. If I had to play the credit card, I only really had 2 gripes with Niko. One being that there was only 1 save file to the game, and the other being that there wasn't a global checklist for each and every collectible. The save file thing I can kind of get used to, but at the same time, I did wish that I could have started another playthrough, and the only solution was to wipe all progress on my girlfriend's file and start again, which I obviously never ended up doing. And then for the global checklist, what I mean by this is there's no way to display a full progress board for each of the game's levels. The only checklists that exists are ones for each individual level, and it doesn't directly tell you if you've 100% completed each level or not. I'll admit, this is a little bit of a nitpick on my part, but I was born and raised on trying to 100% each platformer I play, so it's probably just a me issue. Plus, these two gripes could have easily changed with updates over the years, but I haven't played since 2021, so I'm not entirely sure. Moving on to the more important details, for console availability, Here Comes Niko is available to play on PC and Nintendo Switch, with a price tag of $32.99 Canadian or $24.99 USD. I'm Canadian, so I'm going to go by Canadian prices, but I'll also list USD. This price tag may be steep for some, but then again, just wait for it to go on sale. It was $29.99 when I bought it in 2021, so just wait around for one of Steam or Nintendo's big annual sales. The game's reception is generally positive, receiving 6 to 8 out of 10 on most game review websites and articles. I personally gave it an 8 out of 10. When it comes to playtime, over the course of I think 2 to 3 play sessions, my girlfriend clocked 7.8 hours in according to Steam, and on howlongtobeat.com it says it takes 4 to 8 hours to complete. So to quickly recap, Here Comes Niko's pros are that its art style and characters are colorful and adorable, each world is small but open to explore with tons of collectibles, and that it's a very simple 3D platformer for beginners. Its cons are that there's only one save file, there isn't a global checklist for dedicated collectathon players, and the game's price may not be worth it due to how short of an experience the game actually is. If you enjoyed the gameplay loop of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Odyssey, the cute characters and calming atmosphere of the Kirby series, and the unique art style of the Paper Mario series, then Here Comes Niko may be the game for you. Our second game is one that more people may already know about, as it's gotten a lot of traction in the past year, Pseudoregalia. This dimly lit, ethereal, almost medieval-styled Metroidvania released in 2023, which, funnily enough, is another game I found through Twitter. I don't know, I guess Twitter is just the hotspot for indie games. If your post hits the algorithm, it'll hopefully end up in your target audience's feed one day or another. Now, for those living under a rock, the term Metroidvania is a subgenre of platformers focused on non-linear exploration and utility-gated progression, which is just video game jargon for game doesn't hold hand. The two pioneers of said genre are in its namesake, the Metroid and Castlevania franchises, though some notable examples from the subgenre in recent years are Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, both of the Ori games, and The Messenger, just to name a few. To dumb it down, instead of a traditional A to B styled 2D platformer or an open sandbox 3D platformer, Metroidvanias strip your freedom and lock progression until you can obtain a specific tool that can allow you to progress. This comes at the cost of constant backtracking, which can understandably be irritating to some, and is something you will catch yourself doing often in Pseudoregalia. The game's strongest attributes are its atmosphere and movement. Pseudo's world feels very empty, lonely, and at times eerie. The impression I got was one that really wasn't welcoming. Most structures and platforms are noticeably larger than you, which in turn makes the player character Sybil feel much more smaller in comparison. You won't find many NPCs lurking about, just a myriad of interconnected areas for you to explore. It's funny because I'm so conditioned from 2000s to 2010s creepypastas to believe that a small indie platformer will eventually become scary, or something like, it will have a horror twist that randomly appears and causes a massive tonal shift. But it's safe to say that this game doesn't feature any kind of horror or scares, which to me exemplifies just how strong its atmosphere truly is. The game's sound design, both in its soundtrack and sound effects, also play a massive role in its atmosphere. My two favorite areas to explore were Castle Sansa and the Empty Bailey, while my favorite music tracks were Listless Library and Twilight Theater. I truly recommend listening to this game's soundtrack even if you haven't played it before, because it just slaps. Movement plays a major role too, as is with any 3D platformer, and is a necessary skill the game expects you to learn. Sybil's movement is a homage to Super Mario 64's movement, but not in a literal sense, more so on how the moveset offers experimentation to the player. Movement can be a bit slow at first, but as you progress, you gain abilities like Sunsetter, which acts as a pole jump to your melee weapon, Slide, which allows you to slide, Cling Gem, which allows you to ride and slowly slide down walls, and much more. The beauty in Sybil's moveset is that experimentation, allowing you to combine all of these abilities and chain them into one another. And let me tell you, once you unlock Slide and Solar Wind, comboing them together just feels amazing. I will say though that the skill ceiling for mastering the game's movement is a little high. I've been playing 3D platformers since I could make conscious thoughts, so I feel like I can easily jump into one and learn its movement without issue, but wow. There were plenty of moments in Pseudo where I struggled getting accustomed to the movement. Once you unlock the Sun Greaves, you gain access to the wall jump. This, of course, is an amazing ability to unlock in a 3D platformer, but is also something that many players will end up struggling with. It seems as if the hitbox for the wall jumps are attached to Sybil's foot, because I catch myself just throwing her foot out towards a wall when going for a wall jump, which sounds funny, I know, but I hope it can make sense to the people who have played it. There is a story present in Pseudo, but it's minimal. What it lacks in a story, it makes up for in gameplay. The game thrives off of you mastering the movement and challenging yourself to navigate these unified areas over presenting a narrative, which, in my eyes, isn't a turnoff. And there's also customizable outfits for Sybil, which provides incentive for collecting and exploring. I forgot to squeeze that in earlier, it was just laying here in my notes. And moving on to the fun stuff, for console availability, Pseudoregalia is available to play exclusively on PC, with a price tag of $7.79 Canadian or $5.73 USD. I bought it for $7.79 earlier this year, 2024, and throughout the year it went on sale pretty regularly, with Steam's annual summer sale taking the biggest hit at 25% off. The game's reception is extremely positive, receiving 9 to 10 out of 10 on most game review websites, articles, and YouTube videos. Hell, there are even 2 plushies of this game's characters available through Makeship. I personally gave it a 9 out of 10, to which I'll give reason to shortly. Playtime, I clocked in 8.3 hours according to Steam, and HowLongToBeat.com says it takes 5 to 7 hours to complete. Before the recap, I want to mention that the reason I never ended up giving Pseudo a perfect score was because when I played the game for the first time, there was no map and no checklist. Now, I know I talked about checklists during the Niko segment, but just hear me out for this one. Checklists aren't necessarily needed for all 3D platformers. However, it is convenient to be able to keep track of your progress and see how much of a level or world you have completed. But this game is a Metroidvania, and it doesn't even have a map for its 9 locations. I ended up using a fan-created map through the Steam browser and pinning it to the game's window. So at the time, if the game had a checklist and a map, it would have been damn near perfect. So guess what happened next? 2 entire days after I finished the game, the developer pushed a major update, the first since launch, and lo and behold, it included a map. So if I just waited to play this game maybe another week, then my experience would have been drastically different. So in reality, it's not the game's fault. Now to quickly recap, Pseudoregalia's pros are its incredible atmosphere, carried by its dreamlike setting and dimly lit environments, the amazing soundtrack, a smooth movement system that tests your limits, and its cheap price and shorter playtime. Its cons mostly stem from the movement and platforming can be a little frustrating at times due to its precision, and that the game's combat and story aren't fully fleshed out, which some may take an issue to. But if you enjoy the gameplay loop of Super Metroid and other Metroidvanias, a low poly art style, and platforming that tests your skills like Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, then Pseudoregalia might be worth checking out. This game tickles my brain good. Last but not least, our final game is Solar Ash. This surreal, gravity-bending action platformer initially released in 2021. And no, before you ask, I never found this game through Twitter this time. Instead, I discovered it while watching the February 2021 Sony State of Play, where it instantly caught my attention. Though I never ended up buying and playing it until this year, 2024, go figure. To my initial knowledge, I thought this was just some brand new platformer IP from Sony, and I couldn't be more happy to be wrong. Turns out this was small indie team Heart Machine's second major project. Quick history lesson for those not in the know, Heart Machine had released another game prior to Solar Ash, which some of you may know as Hyper Light Drifter. Heart Machine's founder, Alex Preston, founded the company in 2013 to help support the development of Hyperlight. The company's name originates from the various medical conditions related to heart disease that Alex had, to which he used Hyperlight as a creative outlet and method of coping. You'll often see aspects of this bleeding mechanical heart motif referred throughout Hyperlight as a result of this. The game released in 2016 to highly positive reviews, and Alex was seemingly in good health. The team's dream was made a reality, so of course they knew that they had to continue their dream going forward. The goal of their next title was to create a, quote, whole new set of incredible tech and key innovations. This title culminated into what we know now as Solar Ash. And for those confused on whether or not you need to play through Hyperlight Drifter first, don't worry. While Solar Ash may be labeled as a sequel to Hyperlight Drifter, their only connection is that Solar Ash does in fact take place within the Hyperlight universe, but their stories are not directly connected in the slightest. Right from the get-go, I had a feeling deep down that this game was going to resonate with me, but I never knew just how much it really did. Solar Ash leaves an insane first impression on you due to the sheer scale of your immediate surroundings and the presentation on how the game delivers its opening moments to you. After some minor exposition, you're thrown into this open plane with only 4 compact areas to explore, getting you accustomed to how Ray, the main character, controls, as well as a taste of the main gameplay loop. But that's all the opening moments are. They're just a taste of what's to come, because when this game opens up, it really opens up. The setting of Solar Ash takes place within a supermassive black hole, also known as the Ultra Void. Each of the game's 6 worlds span across fragmented planets and other celestial bodies that have unfortunately fallen victim to the Ultra Void's gravitational pull. It's your job as Ray to reconnect these biomes on a network attached to the Starseed, a device that has the theorized capability to collapse black holes. Ray takes on the responsibility as she is the only member of her team standing, and her hope lies within the capability of the Starseed in a last-ditch attempt to save her home planet from collapsing within the Ultra Void itself. While the core gameplay loop and movement definitely take priority, and is something I'll discuss in great detail soon, you'll find yourself getting immersed in the ongoing narrative as well as the overarching mysteries of the world. There's a lot of show not tell type of storytelling, leaving interpretations up to the player to piece things together as the story progresses. What happened to these ruined lands? Where is Ray's Void Runner team? Where is anybody? What is Ray's purpose after constant trial and error? Will she be successful? Now, no spoilers obviously. There's a great deal in solving the ongoing mysteries of this world, which is mostly told through Ray's internal struggle to manage such a heavy burden, but is also told through meeting the small number of characters stranded within the Ultra Void alongside Ray and following their storylines as they too are searching for similar answers. Horizontality is favored over verticality in the game's movement and exploration. What I mean by this is with other 3D platformers, you're a little more accustomed to climbing and jumping upwards to reach your goal, and sure, you will absolutely be scaling tall structures from time to time, but Ray's kit mostly revolves around high-speed horizontal travel. Movement overall is silky smooth, and you'll be skating across solar ash clouds that bend around fallen ruins and planets. Momentum is utilized, but isn't being relied upon. Each of the game's 6 biomes are vivid and breathtaking, and are so much fun to traverse. You're able to see previous and upcoming biomes, along with the Starseed from pretty much wherever you're standing, which makes Ray feel so much smaller in comparison to her surroundings. Hands down, my favorite areas to explore were Mirrorsea and Broken Capital, with Eternal Garden and Luminous Peak being the runner-ups. The gameplay loop sees Ray defeating Remnants, these colossal black entities with external protective bones. She believes that the Remnants could be a cause for concern, and by striking their weak points scattered across the biomes, it removes a part of their bone layer and culminates in an intense, adrenaline-inducing fight against the creature. I understand that some people can grow tired of the gameplay loop too, but I found it to be very satisfying, as I kept reminding myself that every time I manage to weaken this creature, it will eventually lead into to an unforgivable boss fight. The sound design is also top-notch. It's a very atmospheric soundtrack akin to Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where it complements you as you explore open environments. Some tracks feature a multi-layered aspect to them, where the music gradually scales progression or shifts into a completely different track based on how far you've traversed an area, or even what phase you're fighting a remnant on. This was a music technique also present in Hyperlight that I was really pleased to see return. Moving on to the important stuff, for console availability, Solar Ash is available to play on PC, Nintendo Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X with a price tag of $32.99 Canadian or $24.10 USD. The price tag may be substantial to some, but like the previous two games, this game tends to go on sale often too. I bought it for $26.49 at the beginning of the year, so just wait for a Steam sale. The game's reception is generally positive, receiving 8 to 10 out of 10 on most game review websites and articles. I personally gave it a perfect 10 out of 10 score, which mostly stems from how it personally clicked with me. Playtime I clocked in 10 hours according to Steam, and HowLongToBeat.com says it takes 6 to 9 hours to complete, meaning I took my sweet ass time. So to quickly recap, Solar Ash's pros are its vivid, eye-catching open environments paired with a fluid movement and combat system, super intense boss fights, and a captivating and mysterious story on top of everything else. Its cons are that its gameplay loop can be repetitive to some, and it has a somewhat steep price point, making you consider if it's really going to be a bang for your buck. If you enjoy the sci-fi setting and gravity-defying platforming of Super Mario Galaxy, the Titan-climbing boss fights reminiscent of Shadow of the Colossus, and the unique, vivid art style of the Hyper Light Drifter universe, then Solar Ash may be worth considering. This game delivers on so many levels and tells an extremely important message about letting go of the past and moving forward, while dealing with themes of loss, loneliness, and desperation, among others. But it also manages to hit the mark on a personal level. Not many games manage to give me full-body goosebumps multiple times, or to even make me shed a tear. But this definitely accomplished that. To me, Solar Ash genuinely feels like some vivid idea I dreamt up as a culmination of specific sources of media from my childhood, and manages to deliver one of the best 3D platforming experiences I've ever played. So that concludes the ramble of these 3 games. I've only touched the surface of what my spreadsheet has in store, so maybe down the road I'll make more videos in the same format as this one, or I'll just pick one game at random and make a long-form video. Who knows? All 3 of these games and their respective developers are ones that I'll continue to follow and support for years to come. And I hope that these past 22 minutes have provided enough insight for you to give them a shot, or to even just take a look into them at least. Well, that's enough chit-chat for me. Please go watch one of these videos, cause I worked equally as hard on them as I did this one. And that's a wrap on 2024. This year's kind of been awful, but I still appreciate everyone who stopped by and watched this year. Stay tuned for what's in store for 2025, as I imagine my content will shift and heavily focus on whatever the Switch's successor has in store. And with that, this is Exoid64, signing off.